Ale ja myślę, że można go zrobić tak. I tak jest nagrany ten kawałek. Wszyscy, myślę, znaczy wiesz, no, nikt nie wiedział, nie przypuszczał, że można zmienić nagle tak,
konwencję. I że to jeszcze będzie...
z nas nie przyszło do głowy. A właśnie Nigel ma takie zwroty, takie strzały.
What I love with Crocker is that they're not playing for the tourists. They're playing real serious music and like truthful versions of klezmer with an amount of originality which doesn't preclude the history of the music being evident. It's really the power of melody, which all the great classical composers have got it, and most of the great jazz musicians have got it, but it gets overlooked because technical accomplishment is the easiest way to convince yourself or to convince other people that you're clever.
But you, of course, are a brilliant technician, aren't you? Let's face it.
Well, I work hard on that, you know, but it's like, hopefully it's like a chef working behind closed doors. You know, like, I don't think it's clever if people become aware of your technique. You know, technique is meant to be servant of the music and servant of communication, and once you just get fingers blinding you, you know, then it's not a great concept. And I think that's what Crocker have managed to do. They're all great technical players as well, but they don't let it control their musical destiny.
Nigel is in Hamburg with yet another ensemble, his brand new Orchestra of Life. His schedule is increasingly frantic, and he's only a few weeks now to knock the orchestra into shape for the South Bank Festival. It comprises mostly young Polish musicians, and Kennedy wants it to develop a fresh approach to classical music. His relations with British orchestras and critics have often been difficult, which explains his rare appearances on British stages.
Normally, I gather that most instrumentalists have a limited time for rehearsal with orchestras, but you demand a significant amount of rehearsal time.
Which has really worked, hasn't it, since I'm playing in England about every 5 years.
So they're not resistant then?
So it's like, I don't think I've been much influence on that process, but like, in fact, it was another conductor who was quite an inspiration for me, like Sergiu Celibidache, who insisted on 8 or 9 days rehearsal for one concert, and so I thought, well, if that geezer can do it, I can at least insist on 2 or 3 days. And I think it's just a matter of, do you want people to be turning up, paying for tickets, making sometimes quite arduous trips to the concert hall, and be
unprepared?
Yeah, be unprepared, or selling them something which is second rate instead of first rate.
You may have noticed that there is someone missing here.
You don't like conductors, do you?
I do find the motivation to be a conductor somewhat ambiguous, or certainly dubious. Like, why do you want to go and wave your arms around in front of an orchestra when it's perfectly possible to pick up an instrument and play it yourself? You know, obviously I'm being very generalist here, and it's like a dangerous thing to do, because like...
Yeah, why don't you ask Daniel Barenboim or Simon Rattle? They'll probably have an answer to that one.
Well, I think Barenboim, he still plays the piano beautifully, and so like then the question is even stronger. But like with Simon, I think, yeah, maybe he wasn't like the greatest instrumentalist. He's freely admitted that himself. And like, but these two figures that we're talking about, Rattle and Barenboim, are possibly the exceptions which prove the rule. You know, it's all these kind of B or C grade conductors that one meets on the road, or I have done in the past. And the orchestra, when I was an 18-year-old, you know, starting off in the profession, how many times, I can't count them, that the orchestra came up to me and said, "Don't worry, we're not watching him, we're listening to you."
Nigel's insistence on doing things his own way and his dislike of authority have been ingrained in him since childhood. He won't do something if he can't see the point of it. As a teenager at the Juilliard School, Kennedy was adamant that its rigid regime was cramping his style.
How was the Juilliard for you then?
New York was a fantastic city, but Juilliard, I really didn't think a lot of it. There were so many ambitious people who were thinking only about career and not about music, and so it became quite unappealing. So I'd just hang out with Europeans, basically, you know, and we'd go and play football against Puerto Ricans in Central Park. But I had learned something on the streets outside in New York, like in the summer when it's warm enough to play. It's like I found a spot outside Tiffany's and I used to go and play, and we earned like possibly in the 70s $200 in 2 hours. So that would pay the whole month's rent and take us out for a nice meal with some friends, right? And like, so it was easy money. And like, compared with the £50 I got for my first BBC recital at the same time, I knew that at least I could make some decent money somewhere else.
To give himself the flexibility to play a programme of J.S. Bach and Duke Ellington, Nigel ingeniously embeds his jazz quintet among the orchestral players. As musical director, he sets a blistering pace from the front.
Very often in classical world you get really brilliant musicians who are very, I don't know, limited in, they are scared, they are like, you know, shy, they don't go for it with their personality. And Nigel is actually, you know, making everybody feel so comfortable in their own skin.
A conductor is just totally unnecessary with him. He's so much more than you know, just a solo violinist, so we don't need one, you know, we don't need one.
You know, I do try and get the orchestra to behave a little bit more like a jazz ensemble, to respond, and that was call and response and interaction and proactivity from each section. So that's something maybe which not every director of an orchestra would ask for. I think the good ones do, the ones I admire do, you know, like Barenboim, Tenstedt always did that. Every musician felt as if they were in a small group playing very personal music.
You have to be brave. You can't just, you know, sit back and play exactly what's written. You can expect many, many things, as you could see tonight probably on the concert. You know, there are many spontaneous elements.
You know, I'll be a nominal director in many cases. Hopefully they'll get some ideas, make some splinter groups and develop as musicians and develop their relationships with each other, musically speaking. You know, make some initiatives of their own.